And hi, how you all doing? Dr. Steve here, and I've got Woody by my side. He's down on the floor lying down, so I've got an image of him here for you to take a look at. Hey, listen, I'm really excited about this new series of Facebook Lives that I plan on doing, and I would like to encourage you to share this if you like it, to comment on it, and to subscribe using whatever methodology there is here to subscribe so that you get to find out when my next Facebook Live is taking place. And I want to make sure that we engage with one another as well, so that this is an active, uh, vibrant, and engaged audience. A lot of really cool stuff going on. I want to also encourage you to listen to Executive Zen, my radio show, which, by the way, we just finished up a broadcast just now with Stacy Hankey. And Stacy and I had a great conversation about powerful communication and self-awareness, and how self-awareness impacts our ability to be more effective communicators, and how often we're not really particularly self-aware. How often we think that we think we understand what's happening in our communication, but we're not really in communication with another person. So we don't see it, and if we see it, we just talk louder, right? So how do we develop a higher level of engagement? And that's what that show is about. So I want to actually take you with a screen share over to this other website so you can see what you'll be looking for. So, okay, here you go. This is C-Suite Network's site, and there's a radio show there called Executive Zen. That's me. And if you scroll down, you'll see all the shows that we've done in the past. And most recently, Redefine Influence with Stacy Hankey. Lots of really, really good stuff here. So I want to highly encourage you to make your way over there to Executive Zen on C-Suite Network. Or if you prefer, you could go ahead and find it on iHeartRadio or iTunes as a podcast. So just want to make sure you saw that. So now I can get back here, and we're live again. So first of all, hey, Chuck, how you doing? Very nice to have you here. We talk about mindfulness, we talk about hypnosis, we talk about qualities of mind, and how we're able to be at our best under all circumstances. How do we access our very most effective qualities? And today, what I thought I would do is to talk to you about getting things done. I suspect there are a lot of you out there who are constantly wishing you were getting more done. You've got things in mind that you wish you were doing, but you're just not doing them, or you're starting to do them and then you're putting them aside. And procrastination is a huge, huge issue. I tell the story from the stage quite often about when I was a teenager, and my grandmother, Grandma Flo, was such an important person in my life, and her voice, the sound of her voice, her wit, her wisdom, really, really got me through a lot of hard times. And I remember coming up with the idea as she got older that I wanted to audio tape my grandmother talking. And I thought that would be great. I'd be able to listen to it in years to come. And so I decided the next time I go visit my grandma, I'm going to bring my tape player with me. And I got in the car, went to see her. I got about halfway there, and I realized I forgot my tape player. Well, I wasn't going to go home again, so I went ahead and I saw my grandma. Next time I went to see her, I remembered the player, forgot the tape. Third time, no battery, right? So 2 or 3 attempts, and in every single case, I came up short. And I kept on saying, well, I'll do it next time. I'll do it next time. And of course, next time never came. And eventually, my grandmother passed away. And to this day, I just feel so bad. I long for that opportunity. The wish to have had the chance to hear her voice, to be able to listen to her voice, to hear her wit, the special quality of her voice that was just such an important part of my upbringing. And I never did it, and it was because I procrastinated. And we all do, right? We all have things we want to accomplish, things we want to do in our lives, and we procrastinate about them. We don't get things done. Now, it just so happens that as a result of that and other unfortunate circumstances in my life, I came to realize that procrastination is a big deal, that it's really important not to procrastinate, and it's important to have a system so that you can count on yourself to get things done. And using the system that I developed, I was able to write 2 best-selling books in under a week each. I was able to accomplish remarkable numbers of things and really bring things through fruition. So I've become something of an expert in the area of getting things done. And whenever I've been coached, whenever I've had mentors, that's always a comment that they make. It's like, boy, I tell you to do something, you just do it. You just do it. And it's an incredible quality that I'm very grateful that I've cultivated, and that I think anybody can cultivate. We all have the ability to learn how to be more effective at getting things done. So I developed a program, and a big program called Procrastination Annihilation, and it's an online home study course. You can look it up if you want. But one core element of the Procrastination Annihilation program is the 7 steps for getting things done. And what I did was I looked back over what I had accomplished and how I'd accomplished it and why it worked. And I came up with these seven steps. And I thought what I would do is share them with you. And I would encourage you to take a few notes and see if you can try to apply this in your life to any of the projects that have been sitting on the back burner, any of the things that you've been hoping would be that would come to fruition. That at the end of the day, you're no closer to having accomplished them. I talk to a lot of authors, or aspiring authors, and they're always saying, "Boy, I've got this book inside of me. Someday I'm going to write that book." And either they never even get started, or they start and they just piddle along little by little, and they get very little done. Well, this is what I did to get 2 best-selling books written in under a week each. And this is what I call the 7 steps for getting things done. So let me lay it on you. And feel free to engage. Feel free to jump in here if you've got a question or a comment. I'd love to speak to you direct and live while we do this. Otherwise, I'm just talking to the air. But hopefully, you're out there listening. Nonetheless, I hope you take this to heart. This has been a really useful practice for me. So the first step for this in the 7 steps for getting things done, I call idea capture. Idea capture. I think of our ideas as being like butterflies, all kind of flitting around our heads. And often our best ideas, the most beautiful butterflies, are flittering by while we're taking a walk, or sitting on the beach, or in some state of repose. We're not really in a very active and thoughtful place in the sense of like a deliberate, I've got to be doing this right now. So instead, we just we have these ideas flit by. And what do we do with them? Well, we just let them flit right on by. And by and large, what we do is we say, "Oh yeah, I'll remember that. I'm gonna do something about that." But inevitably, and I know this even for myself, and I've got a pretty good memory, I don't remember it. I get something else, another butterfly comes by and it pushes that one out. And so those great ideas often go uncaptured. And unless you can capture the idea in the first place, there's very little likelihood that you're going to bring the idea all the way to fruition. So idea capture, what do? Well, you make sure, starting today, that every action you take, everything you do, wherever you go, you've got either a phone with you that you can dictate a note to yourself, or you've got pieces of paper in your pocket and a pen or a pencil. And so the very moment that an idea occurs to you, you write it down, or you dictate it to yourself. You capture the idea. That one idea alone has had a profound effect on what I've accomplished in my life, because some of those ideas are gold and you just don't know that they're going to be there when you want them. So capture the idea. That's step 1. Step 2 is idea collection. So some of us, we capture ideas. We got sticky note after sticky note after sticky note, and they're all over the place. They're all kind of hanging around on a desk here or there, and there's no central core location in which we find those ideas. And because of that, we miss out on a lot of the likelihood that we're actually going to execute on our ideas. So idea collection just means having a pad, and as you get home, just write down those ideas. Just transpose them from the sticky notes or from your phone onto a single piece of paper. Now, they don't have to be in any order. There doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason. It's just that there's one place where they exist, and we call that idea collection. Again, very powerful tool. Third tool is called idea cultivation. There are ideas you get when you're walking that don't require any cultivation. Call mom. You get home, you call mom. There's nothing there's nothing you need to cultivate. There are no nuances to it. But there are also ideas that require a lot of teasing out. When I write a book or when I write a speech, that the idea for the speech might be a few words, but I need to cultivate it. I need to tease it out. I need to, start farming my mind for ideas that are affiliated with the initial idea, so that what I end up with are all the different pieces of the puzzle, the different things that I want to say. Now, when you're cultivating an idea, that's a right brain process, which basically means you're not meant to have an order or a structure yet. In fact, it would be to your detriment to try to create order or structure at this point in the process. So you've captured your ideas, you've collected them on a piece of paper, and now you're going to take a crack at any one of them. You're going to say, geez, I think I want to do something with this notion that I have of starting a new business. And what did I write here? I wrote business involving sneaker laces. I don't know what that means, but okay, I want to start a business involving sneaker laces. And so what do? I take a blank piece of paper now. I prefer blank unlined paper for this part of the process because it's right brain. The right brain is not linear and doesn't need lines to get in its way. I'll use colored pencils, and I'll just start writing down different elements of the idea. Shoe, lace, tongue, whatever. I just put all these ideas peppered around the piece of paper with no rhyme or reason. But it gives me an opportunity to start throwing all the associated ideas down. Color is good because color actually helps you to be a more effective creator, a more effective innovator. So that would be the next step of this process, is to cultivate your ideas by taking, a day, a week, whatever, and just throwing all the random peripheral thoughts that occur as a result of the thoughts onto the paper. You're starting to nurture the idea. You're starting to cultivate the idea. Now, once you've done that for a while, now you can move on to step 4, which is idea structuring. Structuring an idea, that's where the line paper comes out. You see, having a line pad is a useful thing because now you can start putting down the various elements of your idea in some kind of structured order. If it's a book, then maybe you start to create an outline for it. Or if it's a speech, maybe you lay out where the stories go, in what order the stories are going to appear, and what point goes along with each story. So you start to structure this thing into what your left brain appreciates, which is order. So you take the disarray, which you needed, and you move it into a sense of order. Now, at this stage of the game, a lot of people fall off, and there's a reason for that, because they don't do the next step, which I call idea testing. If you were to look at a list of all the elements of a particular action that you want to take, or a particular goal that you have, you might notice that some of those actions are easy to take. And some of them you may not know how to do, or they may require that you do something else in order to make that happen. Maybe before you could put things into a box, you need to have the box. So you need to go to Staples. Staples would be a prerequisite to one of those ideas, right? So idea testing means going down the line of your structure, down the list of your structured steps, and seeing if any single one of those items on your list require a prerequisite. Is there anything you need to do before you could successfully execute on that idea? Because if there is, that's what your subconscious mind is going to use to push the whole project off the front burner. You just won't do it. So idea testing, I think of it as like red light, green light. Do I have a green light to take this action, or do I have a red light to take this action? And if it's a red light, what do I need to do? What prerequisites do I need to accomplish in order for this to become a green light? What do I need to do to make it possible that everything on that list is something that I can do? Now, everything that I talk about has an element of mindfulness or self-awareness built into it. And at this point in the process, what I want to do is to say that, your level of self-awareness determines how effectively you take this step. If you're not really self-aware, if you're not looking at this list and really doing the mental work to say, yes, I can do this, or no, I can't do this, chances are you're not going to do it. Instead, you'll just procrastinate about that step. Now, in reality, there are 8 reasons why any one action does not get taken. 8 reasons why we procrastinate. And that's a subject for an entirely different Facebook Live, and we'll talk about those 8 reasons. But understanding things like not really knowing how to do something, that's a prerequisite you need to meet. Not having enough time built in for it. Being perpetually bored. Being somebody who doesn't have enough energy. There are a number of things. If you look at anything on your list and you find that you couldn't potentially do it right now, that's where understanding the obstacles, the impediments comes in. We'll have another whole talk about that later. But presuming that you've taken that step and presuming that you've decided, okay, I'm going to capture my ideas, I'm going to collect them in one place, I'm going to take the ideas that I want to do something with, I'm going to start to cultivate them through a creative process with my right brain. I'm going to then lay them out in a linear fashion, and then I'm going to look at each step along the way, and I'm going to test that out. I'm going to say, okay, can I do this? Can I not do this? Do I have what it takes? Am I afraid to take that action? Is there some prerequisite to taking it? And what do I need to do inside of myself to be 100% prepared, body, mind, and spirit, to take each of the actions on that list so that when the time comes, I'm likely going to accomplish what I set out to accomplish. Now that brings us to the next step on the process, which is idea scheduling. And for scheduling, I used to use one of those notebooks, a day planner, and I would put it in the day planner. So I've got this list of a number of things, and I'd say, okay, I can only do so much at any one given time. So I'd take one piece of the puzzle, one part of my list, and I'd put it on the calendar. And what I discovered, and by the way, now I do the same thing, I just do it on my computer. But what I discovered is that it's very difficult to set a schedule to do something if all you've put is the start time. So if you put Tuesday at 2 o'clock, go to Staples. You might go to Staples Tuesday at 2 o'clock. What'll serve you much better is if you put 2 to 3, you block book it. So you've got a beginning and an end. So you start using your calendar or your computerized calendar as a block booking device so that you have a beginning and an end, and there's time in between that you're not likely to fill. Right now, if you put, I'm going to go to Staples at 2 o'clock, and all of a sudden you've got a 2:15 phone call, obviously you're not going to go to Staples at 2 o'clock because of the 2:15 phone call. But if you've blocked off 2 to 3, now there's a good likelihood that you're going to do it. So that's a huge piece of the puzzle, is just changing your scheduling process from putting a start time to putting a start and an end time. And you could literally, if you're doing it on paper, you could draw a box around and color the box in and just make that sacrosanct. Nothing else gets into that space. It's a really useful tool for people who have a tendency to let their day get ahead of them. If you're doing it on the computer usually does that for you. Set it as an appointment. In Infusionsoft, I set it as an appointment, not a task, because an appointment has a beginning and an end. And my computer, if I look at my calendar, will actually have a block of time blocked off. So scheduling, that's the 6th and the 7 steps. And the last part is implementation. That's where Tuesday at 2 o'clock comes along, and you take out your calendar, and because it says go to Staples Tuesday at 2 o'clock, you go to Staples Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and you check it off. That's a very important part of it, by the way. You got to check it off. You've got to have some acknowledgement you've taken that action step. If you don't acknowledge it, if you don't block it, if you don't check it, then chances are you're less likely to do it because you're not celebrating your wins. If you are going to do it, if you are going to check it off, obviously there are going to be times when for some unforeseen reason, it's not going to get done. But when you use this approach, you still do something. You put an X rather than a check mark, and then you reschedule it at a different time on your calendar. Sometimes that thing turns out to be something you could have delegated to somebody else. And if that's the case, rather than putting a check mark or an X, you put a D for delegate. Just delegate the action to somebody else. But you acknowledge in some form on your calendar that this item, this action step, has been attended to before you move on to the next one. Very, very important. Now, let's say that you are finding that when you get to that part on your calendar, that you keep postponing something that you've put on it again and again and again. You blocked it for Tuesday at 2, you didn't do it. Blocked it for Wednesday at 2, you didn't do it. You blocked it for Thursday at 2, you didn't do it. This is a useful thing to know, Because if you are chronically putting the same thing off again and again, what it probably means is that you didn't properly execute the testing step, the part of the journey where it said testing. In other words, you didn't test that step to see if it was going to be an easy do. Because if it wasn't going to be an easy do, somewhere in the back of your mind, you knew that you were going to put it off and put it off and put it off. So you got to go back, and maybe what you need to do is, rather than reschedule that item, you need to schedule the prerequisite to that item. Maybe, that item that's on your checklist involves calling somebody and you're a little bit tentative or afraid to make the phone call. Maybe there's a little apprehension. Well, what's the prerequisite to doing something that you're apprehensive about? Maybe it's listening to an audio program about how to gain confidence. Maybe it's writing down 10 reasons why it's a good idea to make this phone call. Maybe it's doing a little bit of research about the person you're calling so you feel more confident about calling them. Whatever it is, that's what goes in your calendar rather than the item that you know you're going to put off anyway. So start being circumspect about this. Start using critical thinking so that every step along the way has been thought out. Now, here's kind of the overview of all this. Presumably, most of the people listening to this show are either working for themselves, they're self-employed, or they are working in a company where they hope to act as if they're self-employed. I happen to believe that whether you're working for somebody else or you're working for yourself, that that having the attitude that you are in charge of your own destiny helps you do what you do better. So if that's the case, if in reality you're better at what you do, if you're treating it as if you are self-employed, then here's the advice I would highly encourage you to consider. If I were to ask you to fill in the blanks on this, I say, okay, I'm self-employed. That means that I'm my own blank. What do you say? You say, I'm my own boss, right? I'm self-employed. I'm my own boss. That's only half true, because it could equally be said, if you are self-employed, that you are also your own employee. So now the question is, are you a good boss and are you a good employee? So when you're doing these steps that we just discussed, you're capturing your ideas, you're collecting them, you're cultivating them, you're structuring them, you're testing them, you're scheduling them, all 6 of the first 7. You are your own boss, right? You are the one who decided to capture that idea. You are the one who decided to put it on paper and to cultivate it and to structure it. You are the guy, right? Hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. So for that period of time, you are your own boss. But when you get to step 7, you are your own employee. And you don't want to be a lousy employee, right? So once it's in your book, it's almost as if your boss put it in your book. And if your boss put it in your book, who are you, the employee, to veto what your boss told you to do? So take that approach to this. In other words, once it comes time to implement an idea, treat it as if it were given to you by your boss, because guess what? It was. At the time that you put it in your book, you were the boss. Now that you're reading it in your book, now that the time has come, you're the employee. So don't just be a good boss, but also be a good employee and follow through on your commitments. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is freedom. If you're not disciplined, if you don't follow the prompts that you've given yourself, if you can't count on yourself, if you lack the impeccability, the integrity to be your word, then all of this comes crashing down. But as you begin to build a practice of being aware and consistent with the things you tell yourself you're going to do, then what happens is that the things you hope to do start happening more easily. You just have a sense of yourself as being reliable. And so do step 7 reliably. Check it, exit, reschedule it, delegate it, but whatever you do with it, make sure that it's either rescheduled or its prerequisite is rescheduled. And if you do those 7 steps, capture, collect, cultivate, structure, test, schedule, and implement, I guarantee you'll be getting a lot more done in a lot less time. It's worked for me. I hope that you take that to heart. I hope you appreciate this concept, that you start using it, and let me know what you think of it. Start figuring out where you can use it in your life. I do have this in kind of a visual flowchart. I think it might be appearing right now above the Facebook Live. But if you want a copy of it, just send me an email or Facebook message me, and I'll send you that the JPEG. It's just a nice thing to put on a wall to remind you in graphic form what all those 7 steps look like. Okay, so again, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed this. This is one of my very earliest Facebook Lives. I would love some feedback from you. I would love your acknowledgement, your sharing. Let other people know about this. What you'd like me to be talking more about. I'll make sure that I do Facebook Lives that speak to needs that you have. Please check out the Executive Zen radio show. Again, you could find it on C-Suite Radio or on iTunes or on iHeartRadio, and download it. Subscribe to the podcast. It's a really interesting show. We bring on very interesting guests. This week, as I mentioned, we had Stacy Hankey. A few weeks back, we had Frank Shankwitz, the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. Had Ron Klein, who was the inventor, essentially the inventor of the credit card. He invented the magnetic strip that makes credit cards work. So he's a very important inventor and innovator. And if you're in business, if you're a leader, you're an aspiring leader, and you want to learn more about how to lead consciously and profit responsibly, and learn from great leaders and great thinkers, we've assembled quite a group of people. We'll continue to do it. I hope that you'll join me. I hope you'll be part of our movement here. And if you want anything else from this process, let me know, and I'll do what I can to be as responsive as possible. For those of you who tuned in today, I want to thank you for having been here. I want to encourage you to pop in again next week. We'll be doing this every week. I might change the time. This seems to be a pretty quiet time for Facebook Lives. And if I do that, I'll let you know. And that's pretty much it for now. I hope this has been fun for you. I wish you all the very best. Have a great day. And on my behalf and on behalf of Woody, thanks for being with us. Take care.